We are going to dive into inflation numbers again because we love talking about that on the show. I know that my co-hosts love this topic that I choose every other day because it's an issue and we should be talking about it. So the New York Times today is finally talking about it. They reported that the rise in prices and inflation that we've seen may not be temporary. Who would have thought? Now, of course, this is something that us in the crypto community have known since the very start. You can't print exorbitant amounts of money and not have the value of that money evaporate. But now that the New York Times is talking about it, it makes me even more worried because now we know that it is bad. And in typical New York Times style, which, as one of the loudest and most vocal mouthpieces of the state, they are framing this in terms of, well, how does this affect the president? It's like, can we talk about how this affects the poorest in our community? Can we talk about all the people who are hurting from the prices, not just about Biden and his presidency? So I was a little frustrated in this article that everything is like, well, it could hurt the midterm elections and, their poor spending plan and Biden is losing approval. That all of these things are true. But let's look at the bigger picture, which is a tremendous amount of people are out there and getting hurt by all these rises in prices, and it's only going to get worse from here. So there's a lot that I want to dig into in this article, but I will throw to the group for your initial takeaways. Willem, I'll throw to you first.
Yeah, if it's in the gray lady, then things are not looking good. They're kind of slow on a lot of these topics, at least my perspective. And to see inflation numbers kind of be rolled out frontline in the New York Times means that things are getting pretty serious. We've seen over this year that they've gone from inflation isn't going to happen to inflation is transitory. It's now inflation is here. And so recently, we have it under control. It's going to be fine, is what they said. But they also said last time inflation was just transitory. At the beginning of the year, the Federal Reserve was looking at about 2% inflation rate. That was their target. They often put out targets. And a 2% inflation rate would kind of hit their goal to spur economic development coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic. But then it got out of control, and now we've been around 4 to 5% inflation rates. And it's kind of anyone's guess to see where this inflation goes. Kathy Wood had a really great tweet thread the other day talking about how she doesn't expect inflation to stick around. She thinks that AI, crypto, and some other developments are going to push inflation back down. But we've seen on the other side, Jack Dorsey tweeting that, nope, inflation is here. And in fact, hyperinflation is here. And he pissed off a lot of people when he sent out that tweet. So I think that not only is this topic going to grow in importance, it's also going to become pretty decisive across different aisles. And I think we're going to see how those aisles kind of form up over the next few months. Zach, I'll throw this down to you, though.
I really have I'm not really super smart about inflation, so I'm going to defer. I just think I'm no inflation expert, sir. I think it's really interesting that Bitcoiners have been sort of sounding this alarm for a number of years, and it does seem like it's playing out the way Bitcoiners have said that it will play out. So I'll doff my cap to the early and often calls from the Bitcoin community about the looming prospect of inflation. Wasn't always supported by economic data when they were making those initial calls, but now it's definitely starting to be supported by economic data. And we're seeing that play out in stories like this and in all lots of stories in the mainstream press here now. So that's my contribution to the conversation. I'm going to toss this up to Jen for her thoughts, though.
Yeah, just coming back to what Naomi said about the poorest in the communities. So inflation is increasing at a rate. So for food, gas, and consumer goods, those prices are increasing at a rate that is the highest we have seen this century, which is absolutely insane. And for me, I look at things from a positive angle. Bitcoin and crypto are more accessible than they've ever been. There is a solution. I would have loved the New York Times to explore some of those solutions in the article, but they didn't. And so that was upsetting. But crypto is more accessible than it's ever been. And so there's a solution out there. And I hope that people can start realizing that solution. But I'll pass it back to you, Naomi.
Yeah, that's such a good point, Jen. And that number is just shocking. And it's, they said in the article that they're continuing to have Zoom meetings every week to talk about this and what they can do. It's like, you don't need to have a Zoom meeting every week. Just stop printing money. We have to realize that while all these numbers are coming out, while we're seeing these record highs, the government is continuing to print money. And they're talking about tapering. But remember, tapering does not mean that they're going to stop printing money. It means that they're going to decrease the rate at which they're printing exorbitant amounts of money. So they're still going with the policies that have gotten us into this mess. And meanwhile, they're saying, well, if we print even more money, well, maybe we could help the poorest by giving them some more checks and we can subsidize certain things. It's like, just stop printing money. Just stop, right? We all know that this is how we get into this mess. Stop printing that money. And then they have all these Orwellian things in this article as well, where they say things like, we're going to reduce food and gasoline costs by promoting more competition in the economy via executive actions. Try and work the mental gymnastics needed to make sense of that. They're going to promote this free market, competition, and they're going to do this by having more government involvement in the economy. So something's not quite sitting there, but it's just like, it is crazy that the New York Times is diving into this. One thing I will just say as a takeaway, like Brian Brooks has said previously, Bitcoin is another tool for diversifying your portfolio. And if you're not taking advantage of this diversification, then you're missing out. And it is smart for people just get their money out of cash and even if it's not crypto, maybe you're not sold on the crypto bandwagon, but look into other assets where you can diversify because things are not looking too good yet at the moment. So, oh gosh, this is a topic. So it's a tough one.